Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're trying to catch up on the Wonder Twins because the series actually finished. So right now we're taking a look at issue 10. This issue does continue the plot, which is a good thing, but it still wastes a lot of time lecturing the audience, and that gets in the way of the storytelling. In the previous issue, it was revealed that the twins are descendants of Space Hitler, but the only thing Polly is focusing on is getting her dad back, which is what most of this book is dedicated to. I actually like this cover. It shows the twins in space surrounded by shards of a broken Phantom Zone pane, and I think it's one of the better covers we've gotten so far. The comic opens on a Lex news report. The first page of the comic is mostly wasted on a gag. Comics only have 22 pages usually, and it's a shame that they're wasting it like this. I'm not even sure what they're taking a jab at. Maybe those tiny house shows we see on HGTV? Or maybe it's just a generational age gap thing. But what does this have to do with anything? It seems so pointless. But the Lex news anchors inform us that Cell Phone Sylvia has been promoted to their diversity correspondent, which is probably supposed to be a joke and commentary on social issues, but the comic never acknowledges that she was wanted by the police for her involvement in the League of Annoyance, and it's weird that they would drop that point without acknowledging any kind of trial or investigation. They could have showed her bribing the officers, because right now it feels like they just forgot about it. If you're going to talk about corruption in the system, actually show that corruption. Otherwise the message falls flat. But Sylvia gets called to go on air, so she leaves and it turns out Zan was hiding in the water cooler. I don't know how he got in there, but whatever. They grab her cell phone, but they run into Punditron, but it's mostly forced tension, making us think they might get caught. But they don't, so this scene doesn't really add anything. Meanwhile, Polly's waiting for them outside the building in a van, which might not be the best idea if she's trying to be on the lam. A cop does come around and asks why she's parked there, but then he asks if he knows her from somewhere. Well, she did team up with a supervillain to switch everyone's bodies, and she escaped from juvie, so I guess it's not that surprising. I guess she's the getaway driver, but she made no attempt to disguise herself. They said in the previous issue that she shouldn't go outside because she's wanted, but they put her in a very visible space where of course people are gonna see her. But then she asks if he wants another harassment lawsuit, so he backs off just as Zan and Jaina arrive. Jaina asks how Polly knew that guy was in a harassment lawsuit, and Polly says she was just playing the odds. This scene is probably supposed to be social commentary on profiling, but it feels so forced. Why do Zan and Jaina even need a getaway driver? Can't they just use their powers? Jaina can turn into a bird and fly away, and Zan could use the sewers like he did before. It would be way less conspicuous than having an unmarked van sitting in front of a major news station, with Polly as the getaway driver. The writers made the characters have this escape plan specifically so they could run into a cop, even though they had better options. But they really wanted to have this social commentary, so they had to do it this way. But it comes off as so contrived, like they're asking to get caught at this point. But it's just for the sake of the lecture. In the end, I guess they both profiled each other, since Polly assumed he had a harassment lawsuit. So is the message sometimes profiling works out? It then has a scene dedicated to the interns at LexCorp. To be honest, I don't think this scene really adds anything to the plot, and it's mostly just here for social commentary. I mean, they're trying to get Polly's dad back, and he's been stuck in the Phantom Zone for like 4 issues now. Do we really need to know what's going on with the interns at LexCorp? But it's basically saying that internships for college credit are exploitative. Intern 12 is trying to get food from the break room, but all they have is something called Luther paste. But Intern 5 explains that Lex gave him his corporate credit card when he went up into space to avoid the Great Scramble back in issue 6. So he's laid out a spread for everybody who works there. On top of that, Lex left Earth without landing coordinates for his spaceship, and he needs somebody on the ground to give it to him, and nobody's in a hurry to get him back. So he's been trapped in space for 3 weeks. I can't really blame the interns for doing that, but at the same time, Lex's actions don't make any sense. Why would Lex rely on other people in a situation where everybody in the world is going to be body swapped? How does he know whoever ended up in Intern 5's body would be able to send him coordinates? And who knows where the interns would have ended up? I'm sure people would have had more to worry about than getting Lex Luthor back to Earth after the Great Scramble. One of the interns contacts Lex, basically to rub in the fact that he's going to leave him up there. Lex is happy to finally have some human contact, but Intern 5 says he'll happily give the coordinates if he can say his real name, and when Lex can't, he just hangs up on him. That way he can make a point to Intern 12 about internships. None of this actually matters to the overall plot though, it's just here so the writer can lecture the audience about his opinion on internships. Also, in my experience, internships can be valuable because a lot of employers want applicants who have prior experience, and an internship is a good way to get that experience. My internship let me get a job even though I hadn't graduated yet, but here they're making it out to be that internships don't have any benefits at all. Sure, when the boss is Lex Luthor, then he probably is just trying to take advantage of everyone, but hopefully not every internship is stuck with Lex Luthor, and it's possible my experience isn't the norm. I'm just playing devil's advocate. The only part of this scene that was actually relevant was that it established that Lex Luthor was stuck in space, but for some reason they had to take 4 pages to tell us this information. We didn't need this lecture. The readers aren't stupid. We don't need the message spelled out for us. Lex mulls over different ways on how to kill his interns while stuck on the spaceship. He worries that certain methods would be alienating to customers, but wouldn't they be alienated just by learning that he killed people? Why even consider making that information public? Lex Luthor is a calculated evil genius, but here he's acting like a total fool. Not that this series has ever been concerned with characterization, which is disappointing considering the fact that it is supposed to be canon. Someone does end up reaching out to Lex, and it appears to be Gorilla Grodd. Lex is thrilled that someone's there and asks for landing coordinates, and heads off to Earth. When he arrives, he thanks Grodd and says he won't forget this, and that he's off to take a bath before he gets revenge on the interns. But then they lock him up. I'm not sure where this place is. The doors seem to have the sign for the men's room on it. It turns out it was the kids in disguise, and they steal his ship while he swears revenge on Grodd. At least Lex won't be a problem for them. But how did they know he was in space? Pretty sure he didn't announce that. Polly hacks Sylvia's cell phone while the twins argue if this is the best course of action. Zan says they should have gotten Superman's help. That would make sense since Superman has a Phantom Zone projector, and he could probably flip a switch to get those people back. And the koala too. But Jaina insists they can't do that because they're harboring a prison escapee, and they're helping someone who worked with Lex Luthor, which would make them all fugitives. I'm sure if they had all communicated after the League of Annoyance was arrested and gone to the Justice League then, they would have been very understanding. Especially since cell phone Sylvia was plastered all over the media, and she has a Kryptonian device. I'm sure they would be very interested in that, especially Superman. But instead they all made pretty bad decisions, and now they're in this mess. But Polly smiles hearing this. I guess she's just happy that they're supportive. Then Polly monologues to Gleek about how she knows the odds of getting her dad back aren't great, and even if they do get him back, he's gonna have to go back to the world that put him there in the first place. But she can't accept any more loss in her life. I'd be more sympathetic to her if she had gone to her best friend for help, instead of the crazy man that she told to get out of her house that same day. Polly was pretty cool until the comic forced her to make this decision. If she had said that she thought the Justice League wouldn't help her because her father was working with Lex Luthor, that could have helped a lot. But I can't really justify the Great Scramble. She probably killed people just in the panic leading up to it, and she was okay with that. I can even understand wanting revenge on Lex Luthor, but this is just way too far. But Gleek gives her an apple, which is pretty cute. So they make it to the Phantom Zone pane, and now they all have to risk their lives by dragging it to the event horizon of a black hole, and then have Zan break it, instead of, you know, Superman flipping a switch. Polly warns him that if he goes out there without a spacesuit, he'll freeze in seconds, but Zan says he's counting on it. I guess the comic forgot that he can already turn into ice and doesn't need any help from outside sources. Couldn't he have just said form of an ice spear or something like that? But it works. The pane shatters and Jaina turns into an octopus and grabs everybody before they die in the cold vacuum of space. They probably should have died anyway, but you know, comic books. So everyone's finally rescued and the Maths are reunited. Zan's in pretty rough shape, but whatever, he'll be fine. And they all go home. The comic ends with some setup for the next issue, but I guess we'll talk about that next time. What matters is this whole ordeal is finally over. It was really disappointing to see Polly fall as far as she did. At first she seemed pretty likable. She was friendly and no nonsense, and she tried to encourage her dad to distance himself from the bad guys, including telling the Scrambler to get lost. But then when her dad went missing, she went to a crazy guy for help instead of her best friend, who also happens to be a superhero. And it's not like the Great Scramble would get her dad back. Plus she lived with the Scrambler for a month. She's just a 17-year-old girl, and he's a middle-aged man. It was pretty creepy. As much as I don't like Jaina, she did take on an evil organization for her friend. She is pretty loyal, but then she said she couldn't wait to tell Polly about it, only for her to sit around the Hall of Justice for no reason, especially considering the fact that cell phone Sylvia was still at large and was plastered all over the news and tabloids. But instead of calling Polly or reporting this to the Justice League and police, she just did nothing and sat sat there. I guess I take it back, Jaina just sucks. But at least Mr. Math is free, he didn't deserve any of this. But in the end, nobody is reflecting on what happened and how they could have done things differently to avoid this situation. Yes, there were outside forces that affected them and they couldn't control it, but they're refusing to take any responsibility and only blaming those outside forces. Polly's monologue to Gleek basically cemented that fact, and it's disappointing to see her character fall so far. But that's our opinion. What do you guys think? If you enjoyed the video, you can click the like button, and if you want to see more content from us, you can subscribe. Links will be in the description below. If you want to support our channel, we have a GoFundMe right now, and you can buy us a coffee. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye everyone. Bye guys.